Manhattan, a densely packed metropolis home to over 1.6 million people, boasts some of the highest land values in the world, alongside the most expensive residential real estate. Given this, it would seem the last place one would expect to find an abandoned skyscraper. Yet, New York City conceals exactly that in plain sight. On the southern side of the financial district, along the East River, stands a 60-story ultra-luxury condominium building that has been abandoned since 2018. Construction on this colossal structure began in 2015, nearly a decade ago, and it has since been plagued by multiple serious controversies, lawsuits, and structural instability, with the massive unfinished tower now visibly leaning. But what if I told you that in the heart of this thriving metropolis, a colossal 60-story ultra-luxury condominium has stood abandoned for years, its massive unfinished structure now visibly leaning? Let's uncover how this whole mess came to be and what fate awaits one Seaport residence, better known by its address, 161, Maiden Lane, in this episode of Corporate Chronicles. The area around 161, Maiden Lane was historically characterized by dense industries. However, by the 1960s, much of that industrial presence had vanished, leading to proposals for new land uses. Over the years, large-scale projects were considered for the site, including early concepts for the World Trade Center complex and even the Guggenheim Museum, designed by Frank Gehry. Instead, the area continued to develop organically over the decades, witnessing the financial district's growth and evolution alongside the entire city. Residential real estate in Manhattan was skyrocketing, giving rise to ultra-luxury and ultra-valuable condominium projects. Buildings like 157, West 57th Street, 432, Park Avenue, and Central Park Tower were emerging in Midtown near Central Park, while others such as 56, Leonard Street, 50 United Nations Plaza, and 160, Leroy Street were proving that luxury real estate would sell in other parts of the city. 161, Maiden Lane presented a prime location for such a development. It was a relatively small parking lot in the Seaport area along the East River, bordering South Street, which afforded it the closest possible buildable position to the river. The 23,225 square meter site changed hands a few times, first with Blue Rock Properties, then K Developments. K Developments actually unveiled a tower for the lot called the Seabourn, a 175-unit luxury condominium building, but their plans ultimately fell through. They, too, sold the land in 2013 for $65 million. The developers who acquired the site were Fortis Property Group. They eventually sold the western half of their land to another developer, who would later build a commercial and hospitality complex. Meanwhile, Fortis proceeded to develop their remaining 1,022 square meter plot of land. They unveiled One Seaport, a 204.2-meter-tall tower comprising nearly 60 stories, each featuring luxury finishes and floor-to-ceiling windows. It was touted as the first all-glass condominium building in the area, offering unique, picturesque views. However, such exclusivity came with a steep price, with square footage priced between $2,000 and $3,000 per square foot. As most floors would contain only 1 or 2 units, the entire building would house just 80 units. The average listing price was projected to be around $3.5 million, with full floor plates exceeding $7 million, and the 2-story top penthouse listed for $8 million. For these very exclusive owners, the tower would also feature an extensive amenities floor complete with an indoor pool, as well as ground-level retail. Owners would even have access to book a complimentary yacht up to 3 times a week. Fortis hoped that a complete sellout would generate approximately $272 million, and by 2016, the building was already 50% sold, which was a promising sign for the developers. Construction on the tower was well underway by this point, with their general contractor, Impresa Pizzerati, claiming they could complete the building and have it ready for occupancy by 2018. However, issues began to surface during vertical construction. Throughout 2017, the New York Department of Buildings, DOB, issued 10 citations to the contractor over various safety concerns. These issues were tragically amplified after a 44-year-old worker plummeted approximately 30 stories, around 90 meters, to his death after falling from scaffolding. It was a tragic death for an Ecuadorian immigrant who was not even supposed to be working that day, and this incident highlighted major problems with the site. Pizzarati ultimately pleaded guilty to manslaughter but was only fined $10,000, and no one was sentenced to prison. By September 2018, the Nauri-branded seaport residences were topping out, the final floors were poured, and the roof concrete was in place. Yet, the problems persisted. The DOB halted construction twice within a 2-week period due to incorrectly installed safety netting. Another construction stop order came later that year when a concrete bucket struck the side of the building, spewing concrete onto the street approximately 107 meters below. Despite these stoppages, work continued on the glass and exterior cladding for the lower levels. These panels were being fitted into place, slowly shaping the slender tower. With the building's superstructure finished by early 2019, the large crane attached to it was finally removed. From there, the remaining glass was scheduled to be installed, along with the interiors, but that never happened. Instead, progress on seaport residences slowed to a crawl, and the reason remained a mystery. Then, rumors began to emerge, with speculation growing that something might be fundamentally wrong with the massive tower, perhaps it was even leaning. This was particularly curious given that Fortis had seemingly fired their contractor. This speculation was ultimately confirmed in April 2019 when Impresa Pizzarati filed a lawsuit against Fortis. The contractor alleged that Fortis had cut corners on the foundation, claiming that instead of using traditional deep pilings, common for skyscrapers, especially tall, slender ones, they had chemically treated the soil to strengthen it. Pizzarati contended that this approach caused the building to settle unevenly in its foundation and tilt approximately 7.6 centimeters, 3 inches, to the north. They claimed that from this point, they could not safely continue cladding the building, arguing that the leaning tower would be at risk of elevator issues, leaks, and infrastructure headaches. Fortis, the developers, countersued, dismissing the claims as defamation and asserting that Pizzarati was to blame due to a dangerous work environment, insufficient testing, and failing to notice the building's tilt until April 2018. While this lawsuit unfolded in court, Fortis hired a new contractor, Ray Builders. They conducted studies that, according to Fortis, proved the tower was structurally safe. Ray Builders also stated that Pizzarati had poured the concrete slabs for the building using poor construction practices. The new contractor was then tasked with continuing to install the glass around the tower, with some alterations to the plan to accommodate the slight lean. But just as it seemed this troubled building might finally be finished, Ray Builders abruptly pulled all their workers and quit. They claimed Fortis had failed to meet payroll for their employees. Fortis appeared to be experiencing a liquidity crisis, a suspicion confirmed when one of their lenders, Bank Lumi, claimed Fortis was defaulting on their loan. The bank subsequently sought to foreclose on the property and offload its $120 million position on the condominium building. The lawsuits didn't end there. Fortis found itself embroiled in another legal battle with yet another lender, who alleged their $66 million loan from 2018 was improperly used. Since that point, Fortis Property Group has been mired in lawsuits with no clear end in sight. This has indefinitely stalled the development, and almost no progress has been made on the tower since 2018. At this juncture, almost all of the original condominium buyers have withdrawn from their deals, leaving a vacant, half-finished luxury condominium tower sitting completely abandoned in one of the world's densest cities. The tower has been fully exposed to the elements for almost half a decade, and the consequences are becoming visible. On the bottom floors, the glass panels are clearly showing signs of decay. They likely haven't been cleaned in years, leading to mildew and weathering forming around the edges of each panel. The concrete, too, is beginning to show weather scarring, and almost unbelievably, on the top penthouse floors, someone has managed to spray paint graffiti on the concrete superstructure. Perhaps the most evident sign that this nearly $300 million skyscraper is sitting dormant is at street level. The site looks like any other construction project in New York, seemingly without signs of the deep trouble and prolonged limbo it has endured. Inside, there isn't much sign of life beyond a lone fan on top of a folding chair and a screen displaying CCTV monitors. There is some activity around the exterior during the day, but nowhere near what it would be if the tower were nearing completion. As night falls, the tower is actually lit up, almost eerily so. So, what will ultimately happen to the tower? According to the developers, the building is structurally safe, with what they call an alignment issue. However, there has been no word on whether they intend to fix the lean or how that might be accomplished. This story might sound somewhat familiar, as another condominium tower in San Francisco, the Millennium Tower, has encountered a similar issue with its own tilt of nearly 76 centimeters, 30 inches. Unlike 161, Maiden Lane, the Millennium Tower has been occupied for years, leaving no option but to fix it. The results so far, involving adding underpinnings to help straighten the tower, have not been conclusively successful, proving extremely complicated and likely to cost over $100 million. The issue is that we don't truly know the severity of the situation with One Seaport, as no comprehensive and detailed studies have been made public. Regardless of the outcome, it will likely be a financially devastating situation. One possibility is that the tilting is deemed not a long-term threat to the building's structural integrity, and city engineers agree that the lean will not worsen, thus allowing the building to be finished. However, in that scenario, selling units might prove challenging. It's almost certain that the original investments would not be recouped, especially after all the costs incurred post-stall. Potential buyers might be hesitant to invest their money in a unit in a building with such a history, fearing their investment might not yield the same returns as other luxury units in the city. There could also be a perception that the condominium board would be left to bear the burden if problems arise in the future, similar to what owners at the Millennium Tower in San Francisco are currently experiencing. Furthermore, the longer the tower sits exposed to the harsh weather, the more expensive it will be to restore it to a finished state. Alternatively, if the developers opt to fix the tower, it may turn out to be too costly, potentially leading to the tower's demolition. The idea of a brand new ultra-luxury condominium tower in Manhattan being demolished before it was ever occupied is truly astounding. All scenarios here are almost unbelievable for a modern-day luxury condominium project, especially one in New York City with land this valuable. This was a colossal mistake, and it seems everyone involved wants to shift the blame. Now, after years of cutting corners, poor management, missed payments, deep debt, and lawsuits, the question remains, how much longer will this unfinished, abandoned condominium tower stain the pristine skyline of New York City? Interestingly, a few notable individuals were tied to this whole mess as private unit buyers, one of whom was Frederick Eklund, a New York City real estate agent and TV star from the show, $1 Million Listing New York. He not only purchased a duplex in the building but also represented listings as one of the launch agents. He has also presumably backed out of the building. What's particularly interesting is that many of the early launch sales for the building were documented in $1 Million Listing New York, offering a glimpse into its initial promise before its descent into abandonment.